Hey,
Turn
Chief.
your mic on. Turn your mic on, then say hello.
What's going on?
Hi, Chief.
How's everybody?
Hello.
How's everybody, Maisha?
Good. How are you, Chief?
Good. I'm doing good. Hey, Wanda.
All right,
Hi,
just
how
to
you
let-
doing?
You are doing good. You are doing a great job out here for us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
to
I
let
appreciate
everybody
it.
know, we are now streaming live on YouTube. So I know we haven't officially started, but what we're talking about right now is streaming on YouTube on the city channel.
Okay.
So
Thank
whoever's
you.
watching on our YouTube channel, welcome. We'll be getting started shortly, promptly in about 4 minutes. That doesn't mean you have to stay quiet. I just wanted to make sure that we shared that, okay? Chief, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
How about
Good.
yourself?
Thanks. Good. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Did a podcast earlier. It's good.
Hey, Chief.
Hey, what's up, Council?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Great.
We go.
We have a good discussion tonight, hopefully.
Yeah. It should be lively.
Want to welcome all the
Gotta
attendees
figure out how
starting to join us on the attendee list. Thank you so much for being here. BJ Scanlon, thank you. Principal Katerina Leone Manino, thank you for being here with us. Isabel Rosa from Save Our Youth, thank you. Moms Demand Action, thank you for being here. Wayne Harris, thank you. Jeremy Thiang, Naja Justice, Francis Salgado Givens, thank you for joining us. Jeff Hill, thank you for joining us. The attendees are starting to log in, so this is going to be good. I'm excited for a great discussion this evening. We've got about 3 minutes before we get started. It's 5:57 p.m. Get closer, I will ask most of the panelists to mute yourselves so we don't hear any feedback in the background. And whoever's speaking can speak freely with no feedback.
Ray, what is that city link on the YouTube link?
It is already put on the Zoom webinar chat. The link is on the right-hand side. And the Zoom address was given on the city website as well. Let me ask Patrick Flanagan, can you put the YouTube address on the chat, Zoom webinar chat? Or Bill Schwabaker? All right, is it raining where anybody is at? Because it's like in front of me right now, downtown. Thank you, BJ. BJ just posted the YouTube link. Everybody went and put their stuff on.
No rain over here, Ray. The sun is shining bright. I'm sitting on the porch.
You seem like you're on the porch just outside.
I am. I'm on the porch.
Nice, nice. All right, that's why we have mute, so we don't have to hear you chomping on ice, Serena.
That wasn't ice. That would take that.
Oh, man. It's good to see everybody. Jeremy, good to see you too. Thank you for being here with us. I want to thank our communications, Bill Schwabaker and Patrick Flanagan, for assisting us and helping us with this communication, this broadcast. It's 5:59. We got 1 more minute and we'll get the ball rolling if that's all right with everybody.
Okay.
So it's 6 o'clock this evening. Thank you all for joining. We're going to start this webinar right now. Welcome everybody. My name is Ray Myolis. I'm the coordinator for My Brother's Keeper here in the city of Rochester. And I want to welcome our panelists and all of our viewers that are watching on the Zoom channel webinar and also on YouTube Live. Thank you for joining us this evening here in Rochester, New York. It is my great distinct pleasure right now to introduce to you our City Council Vice President, Willie Lightfoot, for opening remarks. And thank you all. If you can all please mute while we go forward with Mr. Willie Lightfoot. Vice President Willie Lightfoot, on you.
Thank you, Ray. And first and foremost, I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists who have joined us on this evening. I want to say peace and blessings to the citizens of Rochester and everyone who may be tuning in via the web and or via YouTube, or who may be viewing this at another point in time. It is truly our honor and privilege to be here before you on this evening. And I want to say that I'm truly grateful for the mayor and the city of Rochester, as well as the communications department and Ray for helping us to put this together. And again, all of our distinguished panelists who are on our panel this evening. I just want to, before we go into a moment of silence, where we're going to honor the victims and or individuals who have lost their lives so far this year in 2020. There are 17 names that we will honor on tonight before we move forward, but I just want to give a brief overview of some of the work that the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition has done and explain to some individuals the inception of or the creation of the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition. So, of course, I'm Vice President Willie Lightfoot. I am at-large member. I'm also chair of Public Safety, Youth, and Recreation. I'm also joined with another one of my colleagues who's also on the Public Safety Committee as well, Council Member Lachey D. Harris, who is South District Council person. So we'll get to our other distinguished guests later, but I wanted to honor one of my council members who is with me, and also the media chairperson of our particular ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition. So the coalition was started a couple of years ago with basically just trying to bring people together who do this work every day to try to combat, eradicate, advocate against gun violence within our community. And as a result of that, we started to think about a campaign, which is a shot from a gun can't be undone, which are billboards, the PSA marketing information that you've seen across our city. And on the month of June, there's a day that's a National Gun Violence Day. And we oftentimes bring awareness in the entire month of June, as well as the entire year, around gun violence within our community. Due to COVID-19, we were unable to really respond the way that we normally respond to a lot of the incidences that happen in this city. But our coalition has still been very active. And we wanted the community to know, especially with the recent spike of violence that we see happening all over our country, as well as our city locally, we wanted the community to know that we're looking for solutions and answers to a very long systemic issue within our city. So that's why we're here. We're here to share, we're here to learn, we're here to hopefully come up with some solutions. This is not a point the finger type of conversation. Gun violence and violence affects every one of us in our community, and it's going to take each and every one of us to combat this violence. So with that being said, I would like for you guys to join with me after I read these 17 names in a brief moment of silence. Willie Carter, Ricardo Stone, Paris Washington, Trenton Cook, Jorge Bonilla, Dakota Pulaski, Todd Hamilton, Nathan Bernard, Shernette Trune, Justin McMillan, Lorenzo Wade, Gerard Jones Jr., Kathy Henrich, Trace Sloan, Pedro Santiago, Norris J., and Rashad Snowden. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, I turn it back over to you, Ray.
At this time, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you one of our first panelists, and that is our Chief of Police, LaRon Singletary, who will give us 2 minutes, a brief statement about himself and why he does the work that he does. LaRon?
Thank you, Ray, and thank you, Vice President Lightfoot and Council Member Harris, as well as all our partners, the city government, and even our community partners. We're here because, we just heard 17 names who are no longer in this community, who were here as of January 1st of this year. And behind each one of those names is a story. And each one of those names, when they lost their lives, I received a phone call letting me know that another person in the city has lost their life. The reason why I do the work that I do is because we try to find justice for those individuals the families of those individuals who have lost their lives. This is not easy work for anyone. I don't think anybody on this panel claims to be an expert, but what we do claim is experience. Whether you are a person who has lost a loved one, or you are here doing a work, or you are wearing a uniform trying to apprehend an individual who has taken someone's life. Many of our shootings in Rochester are dispute related. And one of the things that we often tell people is, if you know someone who is carrying a gun, to call 911 so we can try to prevent, the symptom of what I say is the problem. The problem is sometimes people not knowing how to settle their disputes. The symptom is the easy access to a gun. And I know later on we'll get into the conversation about where some of our guns come from and how they get into this community and some of the gun laws across this country. But that's one of the reasons why we do the work that we do, because we know on average we have about 28 to 34 homicides in Rochester. And the number varies depending on what occurs, what is going on, and people inability to settle their disputes and easy access to a gun. And what I always talk about is that we cannot do this work alone. And I'm happy to see the partners on the screen. And this is a community issue. This is what some may call a public health issue. Gun violence particularly, sometimes we need to call it what it is. I've been looking at the numbers. 80 to 90% of our victims are African Americans. 80 to 90% of our victims are African Americans. That is a public health crisis in and of itself. Some people may describe it as a pandemic, but it's one of the things that we're constantly looking at trying to solve and resolve in our community and across this country. And I think, as Vice President Lightfoot pointed out earlier, we are seeing a spike in violence across this country. And many people are trying to tie it to COVID. I think it's too early to kind of tell, but we do know that there was a pause on many things that were occurring in our communities that typically allow us to be diverted to other opportunities, avenues, and entertainments that just were no longer there. So there were some articles, some experts say that, it was easy to find individuals who may have been involved, who may be involved in disputes because there was no other alternatives that were out there. But I think what it boils down to is individuals making poor choices. And, we just had Father's Day this past weekend. There were 3 individuals who were murdered in our community in a matter of, less than 24 hours, who were sons, who had fathers, who were brothers, who were experiencing pain on that day. So that's the reason why we do the work that we do. And, here, as we said, we have, 106 victims of violence this year, individuals who were shot, non-fatal shootings in Rochester. So that's why we do the work that we do. And I'm very appreciative to be part of this panel.
Thank you, Chief, for those great words. Next, I'd like to introduce Sabrina Lamar, who represents the 27th District in Monroe County Legislature and currently serves as the legislator's Public Safety and Human Services Committee. Born and raised in Rochester, New York, Ms. Lamar's commitment to the city of Rochester is reflective of her personal and professional activities, as she is the board member of Rise Up Rochester, board member to Action for a Better Community, vice chair of the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition, a former assistant director for Rise Up Rochester. And she currently works as project coordinator for SERVE, which is Community Engagement to Reduce Victimization at RIT's Center for Public Safety Initiatives. Sabrina is also a member of the 19th Ward Association, Faber AME Church, and a volunteer from Rock the Peace. She has 2 children, Tajmir and Jayana, and 1 grandson, Nason. She currently lives in the 19th Ward of the city of Rochester, and I'd like to introduce Sabrina Lamar. Can you turn your mic is off? Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I think you took everything that I was going to say. So hi, everybody. My name is Sabrina Lamar, like Ray said, and I am the county ledge over in the 27th district. My passion for this particular subject is because my family, like many others, have been affected by gun violence. When I was 12 years old, my 18-year-old brother was an innocent bystander and was shot and succumbed to his injuries. And back when that happened, that was back in 1987, there weren't a lot of services for my family, particularly me, because I was the baby and I was only in the 4th grade. And his death really played out into my adolescent and my teenage years. So my goal is twofold. One is to make sure there are services that are provided to families who have been affected by gun violence, and 2, to make our neighborhoods safer so other families don't have to experience what my and many other families have went through. I've had the pleasure of working with several organizations that are also working towards eradicating gun violence, and a few of them are on this panel right now. And this is my life's mission, and we won't stop until things change. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina Lamar. I appreciate those words. And next, I'm going to have Serena Cotton, who is our founder of Rock the Peace. So Serena and I actually go back from Rock the Peace. So Pathways to Peace used to have a Rock the Peace event, and then Serena was able to take it on. She has suffered loss of her own as a mother, and she has been leading the voice in some documentaries and has worked with the mayor to put Rock the Peace on the map. And Serena Cotton, thank you for being here with us. And why do you do what you do, Serena?
November 17, 2007, I lost my 16-year-old son to gun violence. He was shot and killed across the street from home by another 16-year-old. Later on, we found out it was because a young girl lied to Christopher about her age. She told him she was 16. She was actually 12. So he died not knowing why he died. And he was the youngest of 4 boys. And a year later, my oldest son was shot on the same corner across the street from home as Christopher. He was with one of the witnesses in the trial, and they were attempting to shoot one of the witnesses and shot my son. And then in 2011, another son was shot in the back 3 times. And that person later on, they went to trial and witnesses did not come forward. And that same person later on killed another and actually killed someone. So with that, I started Rock the Peace in 2008 because Christopher was one of 3 individuals that was killed within 24 hours. He was the youngest, and just noticing all the violence and everything going on. And I just continue to fight this fight. Plenty of times I want to give up, but there's mothers who heard my story, heard me talk, and helped them get through the loss of their children. And also young men, we go out and pray on the corners. And myself, Rock the Peace, and Rochester went out, and a couple of guys that were out there hurting actually were saved that day. And so I continue this fight, and hopefully, you know, prayerfully could turn someone's life around. And I'll just continue.
Thank you, Serena, for that. You are not alone. We are there by your side. Thank you for the work you continue to do day in, day out. Next, I have Wanda Ridgway, who is the Executive Director of Rise Up Rochester. And it's also another not-for-profit that empowers the community to establish a nonviolent culture in our city. After losing her nephew, Herschel Scrivens, to senseless violence in the city, Wanda started attending a Rise Up support group. Eventually, she ended up becoming the executive director of the support group she used to visit. Some of her accomplishments evolve around the Barack Obama Lifetime Achievement Award, Terry Melvin Award for Black Skills Trade Union for her work in the community, James McCullough Award for ABC for volunteering in the community as well. And most recently, which just happened like very recently, she was named the ESL Continental Award winner. And she's truly committed to helping her community to establish and maintain a nonviolent culture. Wanda Ridgway, why do you do what you do?
Let's see. It started back in 2004 when I lost a dear friend of mine, Gloria Simmons, who was shot by a drive-by. January 26, 2001, I witnessed my ex-boyfriend being murdered. He actually died in my arms. And recently, in May 4th, 2019, as I stood and comforted my friend, Leslie Ogden, as her son was murdered, Jalen Everett. And the list goes on and on and on and on. I can tell you days. You know, it's just that I do this work. I listen to children. I work for the Rochester City School District. And when I listen to kids and I hear their stories, you know, there's nothing to do. They have no hope. We try to, you know, I just want to encourage them and let them know that we all, you know, the chief said something to me one day and it is stuck with me. We all have a role to play when it comes to creating a safe place in our community where we work, play, and live. So, you know, I think we all, and we have to get out here. As Serena says, we have walked the neighborhoods. We have met with young men. We go into schools, we talk to children, try to educate them. But it was something that touched me about these young men on the corner that just thinks that, you know, like I said, it was just something about those young men. You just have to show them that, you know, love, you know, just spark that conversation. I was the one that was just like, I don't know about this, but just walking up to them and just trying to speak to them and try to give them some resources and just to let them know we love them, you know, and they started reaching out, you know, so you just never know what nobody's going through. And the reason I, you know, like I said, I do this, I want to see my grandkids. I'm tired of my grandkids feeling like it's not safe to go outside and play. You know, they would rather be in the house on video games. And it's like, no, we got to make some changes. So that's why I'm in this.
Wanda, thank you for that. I'm going to share a little bit about myself. My name is Ray Mailisa. I'm the My Brother's Keeper coordinator, formerly the manager of Youth Outreach and Violence Prevention, which oversaw the program Pathways to Peace. We've been doing that work since 1998. So over 20 plus years, 22 years of really walking the pavement with credible messengers day in and day out, being visible in this community for many, many years. And some of the things that I have been exposed to in 22 years, I wish I can unsee them, right? And I continue to do the work that I do because, and as my team would call it, it's not a job, it is a passion. It is my calling to continue working with young men of color now in a different light. Although the prison to school to prison pipeline has always been the language, I'm taking on a different language, which is the cradle to career pipeline. And that is like from infancy stage, making sure our young men of color, as their babies, have the proper resources to make it in this world. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention to my colleagues who have pounded the pavement with me in the last 22 years, Victor Saunders, Bev Jackson, Anthony Hall, Justin Morris, Mike Manley, Quinn Smith, and the list goes on of some pioneers that really put in good work on those streets to spread this message of nonviolence and to get in front of disputes. We have a new generation, people out there today. This new generation is right here, right now. They're exposed to social media. They're exposed to immediate technology that has information at a flip of a finger, right? So we need to change those trends and be as savvy with technology and social media and move forward. So our job is just getting a little harder because we have to stay at the same pace as our younger generation. I only say this to say that I'm not going anywhere. I'm still sticking around, and we still have a fight to fight against gun violence and all violence in that matter. And I want to just let you all know that I'm a phone call away as we move forward to the next chapter. I'm going to start today's questions out with the chief, but before I go there, I also want to...
Hold on one second there, Ray. Thank you, Ray. I just want to pivot just a second here because we do have our mayor was unfortunately unable. She's supposed to be with us tonight, and she was unable to be with us. So Marisha Beard will be reading a statement from our great mayor, Lovely Warren.
Thank you, Vice President Lightfoot, and good evening, everyone. Mayor Warren has prepared remarks for us, like the Vice President said, and unfortunately couldn't be here with us this evening. However, I will read these remarks on her behalf. Mayor Warren writes, first, I want to thank the members of our community for joining us this evening. Thank you, City Council Vice President Lightfoot, for taking the lead by organizing the ROC Against Violence Coalition virtual town hall meeting. And thank you to all of the panelists for your diligence and hard work to prevent gun violence in our community. I am no stranger to gun violence. When I was in the second grade, my granddad was a security guard at Wegmans and he was shot. My first reaction was being thankful that granddad was alive and well. But at the same time, I wanted to know what would happen to the person who shot my grandfather. And that's when I knew that I had to become a lawyer. And that's why I am dedicated to the fight for justice to help eradicate gun violence. And decades later, we are still here fighting to end gun violence. As we all know, this is at its peak during the summer months. Just several days ago, there were multiple shootings on the same day, and that has to stop. This summer must be different. So what do we do? What can we do? I do know this. Current events are showing us that the community wants change. Our community deserves safer and more vibrant neighborhoods, and I am determined to continue the necessary work to create that atmosphere in our city. But I can't do it alone. Chief Singletary can't do it alone, nor can our panelists do it alone. However, collectively, we as a community can change the narrative with one united voice to say enough is enough. We must end the culture of conflict that ultimately leads to gun violence in our city. And I implore the citizens of our community to take a step back and use consequential thinking before taking someone's life. I am so grateful to the members of the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition for bringing much needed attention to this issue. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, the ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. We must cultivate a city of love and respect for our fellow brethren. Together, I have faith that we can and will do just that, so that our future generations won't have to continue this same fight. And so that my daughter Taylor and future generations can safely live their lives and reach their fullest potential. Thank you, Mayor Lovely Warren.
Thank you, Maisha, for reading that for us. We thank our Mayor Warren for those great statements that I think we all can find ourselves in those statements. Before we go into the questions, I just want to do a little housekeeping. This conversation is with our panelists, but this conversation was also designed to be with our community as well. So we want those of our listeners who are, if you're watching via YouTube, we have people monitoring that. If you're on the Zoom call, you can put your questions, comments in the chat section, and we'll try to get to as many community comments as we can. I just want to just go over a little bit of work, and I want to take the time to thank the entire ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition. We are a deep coalition made up of almost 80 members. We have almost 25 partners that partner with us that do this work every day throughout our community. And oftentimes we hear in the city of Rochester that we're a fragmented, that we're a siloed community. I want to say that the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition is not fragmented. It is not. It is a unified one voice around gun violence. We have one complete mission, and that is eradicating gun violence in our community and violence in our community. We've met for over two years. And as a result of that meeting, last year, we presented a 5-point priority list to City Council and to the mayor, which all of those things on our list were implemented. We asked for more staff on the Pathways of Peace. We asked to begin to work on supporting different gun laws, the Safe Storage Gun Bill that was passed in the state. We also changed to treat all homicides, or we consolidated our investigators unit, which is presenting a lot of positive results that the chief will get into later. We're currently working on and created a coordinated response team. And we're currently, and we've already passed City Council with the help of one of my colleagues, Lachey Harris. We've passed and purchasing our first ever in this city mobile trauma response unit. So that's on its way and it's coming. And we always talk about trauma, but we're not actually doing anything about it. Well, we're actually saying, let's do something about it. And let's put actually a trauma unit staffed with clinicians to begin to deal with this trauma and responding to these homicides that happen in our community. So again, I just wanted to thank all of our coalition members. There's too many to name, but we're going to go into our question period. And if you are listening and you want to ask a question, or if you have solutions, this is the thing, a reason why I really wanted to get the coalition involved. Because oftentimes when I'm walking the streets of Rochester, when I'm around, when I'm in my barbershop, or when I'm in the grocery store, people always say, let me tell you what you need to do. And I always tell them, well, how about what we need to do? Because I can't solve the violence in our community. None of us on this panel, with the exception of maybe the chief, have ever pulled a trigger on somebody, right? And I'm not sure he has either, but none of us have ever done that. We can't legislate people's morality, right? So it's going to take each and every one of us. It's not a you do thing, it's a we do thing. And we have to understand that if we're going to really solve this issue in our community, that we're all going to have to step up and become a part of this. Now, later on, I'll get into how you can get involved. The ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition, the table is open for anybody. We're very inclusive, and we accept ideas from everyone. And we're open, we meet monthly, and our meetings are now being streamed live on our Facebook page. And we're being very transparent about the work that we're doing in this community. So I'm gonna start with you, Chief, and you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but you know, of course, we've had a rash of spike of violence, and we've seen it in Syracuse, we've seen it in Chicago, some of this violence and the trending of this violence. And we know the first thing that comes to people's mind, you know, is, okay, what's going on? What's happening? And from your view, Chief, and first I want to say, we love you, Chief. Rochester loves our Chief, okay? We love our Chief, we respect what you do, and we stand behind you and the men and women in blue that do this job every day, especially those that enjoy doing this job every day. You know, we stand behind you guys, and we understand that you have a very difficult job to do. But from your view, on the recent violence locally and nationally, can you give us your perspective on that from your particular perspective?
Well, thank you. And I love Rochester as well. And I love you all as well for taking a step in this. You know, it's tough. You know, we talk about gun violence, and it's one of the things that I always say, we cannot do this alone. And when you talk about devising a strategy to end and eradicate gun violence, you need data. You need data to do it. And that's what we've been doing the last several months, trying to form a coalition and gather data so we can put the right strategies in place. As I stated earlier, many of our homicides are dispute related. And I believe the larger problem is individuals not knowing how to settle their disputes. In the world of social media today, you know, I mean, someone can get word about someone having an issue in a matter of a few seconds. And next thing you know, something pops off over here. And then next thing you know, we have 6 or 7 incidents that trickle from that one particular incident. And that's where we try to use our gun-involved violence elimination. It's a state grant that we utilize over time and try to do hotspot policing with regard to early dispute identification. Because many of our shootings involve some sort of dispute that starts in one area of the city, or whether it's a school or some business that trickles into other different disputes. Next thing you know, you have one shooting, then next thing you know, you have 8 offsprings from that one individual shooting. And as we know, bullets don't have a name on them. And so every week, what we try to do is we try to analyze each individual incident from shots being fired and things of that nature. You know, we do firearm hotspot policing, you know, where we tend to look at where the firearms violence is occurring in our community. And that's why it's so important that the community members call us when they know of an individual involved in a particular dispute. But as you stated, you know, I mean, we had 3 homicides in a matter of less than 24 hours. Chicago has 60 shootings in a weekend alone in a matter of about 72 hours. And they had 10 homicides. But when you look at per capita, sometimes the violence that we have here can almost can equate to a larger city with a larger amount of people compared to the number of people that we have here in Rochester. But the one thing, as you mentioned, as you touched on earlier, was our patrol section investigations. What we wanted to do was we wanted to mirror that with our major crimes unit. And our major crimes unit, we had last year a solvability rate of about almost 90%. So for every 9 out of 10 homicides that occurred in Rochester, we were able to solve 9 out of those 10 homicides. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to mimic that for non-fatal shootings. We were about almost 20%, I think a little lower, 17% of a solvability rate, those individuals who were arrested for non-fatal shootings in Rochester. That's pretty low. And that's almost average around the country for a number of reasons. People don't want to cooperate for a number of reasons, right? We talk about retaliation, fearing protection, not wanting to get involved. So those are some of the issues that I think when you talk about what's going on here, what's going on a larger spectrum, and then you got COVID as well. You know, everybody was kind of shut in for a period of time, and you know, it allowed, unfortunately, individuals who had beef with other people to be able to find those individuals, because you were either at home or you were somewhere in a community where you typically frequent or hang out, and it was easy to try to locate an individual. But I am pleased to say that we have made a number of arrests in a number of shootings. We just announced an arrest today at a shooting that happened, I think, on June 8th over on Milton Street. We made that shooting. So people are coming forward in this community. And I always say that if people don't feel that the police are solving the problem, they're going to be less likely to get involved in an investigation, but unless they see results. So we did make an arrest on a shooting that occurred on Milton Street earlier this month. And so that lets me know that people in the community are fed up. People are being involved when it comes to solving gun violence in our community.
Thank you, Chief. The next question is for Ray, and I see that we have some in the chat. So those panelists, I ask that you please bear with me if you're next, and I may skip and get one of the questions out of our chat. But Ray, the next question is, when I went to read these names tonight, I was able to go to a site. We just heard the Chief talk about data and the importance of data when combating violence in our community. And I want you to talk about, can you share how the open data portal or first of all, what is the open data portal and how can it be used as a tool for combating violence within our community?
Okay, I'll do the best I can with this one, but if the Chief wants to help me out with that one as well, because it's their portal, but I'll do the best I can. And I'll share with you how we use it for our information, because a lot of people on the chat right now are saying numbers don't lie, right? Neither does information. Information does not lie. Data does not lie. And the data is only as good as the input that's being input into that. So we use the data portal for information to look at trends and how things are taking place, where trends are happening. If you look at the 17 homicides, you will know that a majority of them, I can use probably a percentage, 80, 90% have happened in the Northeast quadrant based on the data that is shared on the open portal. You can also look at age, age ranges between what happened for what incidents, whether it's an assault, whether it's a shooting or a stabbing. You could look at age ranges of who's getting stabbed, who is getting shot, and what is the median age. Also, where these things are happening. So these are all some things that you can just, by looking at the open data portal, which is public information and very transparent by our RPD to really expose that to the community so we can use that to better educate ourselves on where things are happening, how to combat them, where to proactively put resources into that may need, resources in those neighborhoods. We look at those things, we look at burglaries, we look at even theft of vehicles. I mean, all types of information is public information that an open data portal. The other thing that we use it for is to see what crimes are solved, right? They always put when they're make arrests on certain crimes and certain homicides. And you could see when those things take place, how much time from the actual victimization or homicide to when somebody's arrested. So I mean, again, these are all valid things, valid information that we use for educational purposes, for grant purposes, to secure more dollars for our areas, for areas of violence. And, back in the, early 2000s or late 1990s, we used to use the language as the crescent for the areas that were high in crime and high in violence. And right now that has been pretty much, you can look at the open door portal as that tool to tell us where things are happening. Where it's safe, where you want to buy a house. So if somebody wants to move to Rochester and keep Rochester as their home, you do your research before you purchase a house of home invasions or burglaries at the corner stores or shootings or, all that information is public information. So I'd say use the open door data portal as a tool for all those types of things, whether it's resources, whether it's planning, education, whether it's, for us, it was outreach. We would know where to predict where we need to be and do outreach for our team based on what's happening, what the trend is, based on what the information is telling us on the open data portal. Chief, you want to add to that?
Like how does one get to the open door portal, Chief?
You can Google, you can type in RPD open data portal, RPD open data portal, it'll pop right up. And it's basically a search engine. It's a public platform for exploring and downloading open data and engaging to solve important local issues. And many people use data for a number of reasons. You know, one of the things when we first started the open data portal, people were a little hesitant because you're putting all your business out there. But one of the things that we're hearing about, you know, today in the last couple of weeks, and even I think what throughout Rochester PD has been about is being transparent. That's what people are calling for today: transparency and accountability. All the data is there, you know, because when you release data, people can use it for whatever purposes they want. But like Ray said, the data doesn't lie. And some people can use the numbers to prove a point. And some people say it can make your city look good or it can make your city look bad. But the biggest thing is transparency. And you look at number of homicides, shootings, and you know, a lot of decisions are based on data. That's what we kind of utilize it for, particularly when you talk about coalitions and putting resources in a particular point in time. 17 homicides this year in the city of Rochester. 11 of the 17 have occurred in Clinton section, the northeast part of the city. You know, so homicides are unique in and of themselves. We haven't had any retaliatory incidents with regards to homicides being related to one another that we know of this year at this point in time. And 8 of the homicides this year are closed, which means we have 9 of the homicides open. We have good leads in many of the homicides, but as I always say, you know, call us with any lead that you might have. And you don't necessarily have to call us. You can reach out to community partners as well. I know people are sometimes less reluctant to talk to the police, but there are many organizations out there who will get the information to us. So as I know, many people are not comfortable talking to the police.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chief. And
I just want to say thank you to Commander Rivera, who posted the link on our attendees Zoom information. So there is a link on there. Anybody would like to check out the portal, it's there. And it's and I can give you the actual website. It's data-rpdny.opendata.arcs.com. Really simple.
thank you. Thank you. We got a lot of questions we're going to try to get to. Time is getting away from us. And this is a good conversation. Our next question is for Serena and Wanda. Same questions for both of you guys. You know, I also want to say that, you know, if you see something, say something, as the chief has said. If you have information about any of these current homicides that are still pending, as far as them capturing someone, we know Crime Stoppers is also another tool that people can use in order to get information to the police. But Serena and Wanda, I'm gonna start with you, Serena. When you went through your loss of a loved one, what resource or what methods did you use to help you deal with that trauma?
At that time, Miss Audrey Smith, her organization with her sister, Miss Maudine, they helped me a lot. They got me through. They come to court. They did, you know, everything that I needed, they had. And there's resources out now, you know, the different organizations that that folks can reach out to. We have a website our website is www.ragvc.org that has a resource page as well that you could click on any link to get to anyone's website, as well as we have a phone number that anyone can reach out. You can either call or text if you have any questions or you need someone to talk to or whatever. And I could give that number, 585-708-9787. But having someone there with the resources to help you is very, very helpful.
Thank you, Serena. And I mean, you speak truth to power. You just put the numbers and email and text, everything out there. And we appreciate that because this video will be shared on YouTube. The link will be shared to other folks. And we know that there are other people who are dealing with traumatic experiences and losses due to violence. And we know that hopefully they will reach out to you and your team as well. Wanda, I pose to you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Also, I just want to add that we have Facebook pages, the Rock the Peace page. We have a youth organization, Youth for Peace, that's on Rock the Peace. I mean, that's on the Facebook, as well as Why My Baby for parents that lost their children. I just want to add that as
Well,
well.
thank you. We appreciate that addition too, because that's more services that we can provide to our citizens. Wanda, I would pose to you the same question. When you're dealing with this trauma and this loss, what did you yourself do? What do you recommend for others? And what do you see we may need, you know, in addition to what you may tell us today?
As I previously stated, in 2001, I witnessed my ex-boyfriend being murdered. That put me in a state of mind where I had to actually go through counseling, and I was angry with the world. I stopped going to church. I stopped doing, just stopped doing anything, everything. So I went to church one Sunday, and I attend Baber African Methodist Episcopal Church, and in the program they had about a support group for families of homicide victims. So I started attending that support group, and just listening to their families and realizing that I wasn't the only one that was going through alone by myself, and that I needed that support. That pain that those families they were feeling, it gave me a power where I knew that we had to do something, and it had to be put out there, because you really didn't hear too much out about it in the community. People didn't know. So I just really wanted to do something different, to get out there. So our Rise Up support group right now, it currently meets. We have 2 support groups on a second Saturday at 2 p.m. and on the fourth Saturday at 2 p.m. Like I said, it's just to let people know you're not by yourself. You can come, you're going to experience some of the same, you're amongst people that feel the same thing. A lot of people, they say when they do come that, wow, this is different. When I was going to counseling, they didn't understand, but just being, amongst those mothers and family members, they understood. So,
Well, thank you, Wanda, for what you do. And I know you are the executive director of your particular organization. I know you're fielding calls. I know between you, Serena, Ray, Sabrina, you guys are on the street. I can remember in the heat of the pandemic, you guys calling me saying, "Hey, you guys, we still out here. We out here working." And so, mask and all. You know what I mean? We appreciate you guys for the relentlessness of the work that you guys diligently do day in and day out for the families of these victims. And we know that it looked much different, the visuals and things that we normally happens when these things happening because of COVID. We had to, we couldn't do certain things that we normally do and allow. And we know that even that was traumatic in itself. So we know our team was working with individuals. You guys were working with individuals to figure out alternative ways for people to mourn, and so that they can have that space that they need. Because a loss is a loss is a loss, and hurt people tend to hurt other people. Legislator Lamar, so as a county legislator, when people apply for guns, because we're about to get into some heavy stuff about how do we get these guns off the street. That's one of it was in our chat. Somebody they want to talk about the mobile trauma unit. We can get into that. So when people apply for gun permits, why is it that they don't have training on how to properly care and store their guns safely? And as a county legislator, what proposals do you think could help from your perspective, from the county perspective, to curbing this violence in the community?
So those are really good questions, and I've been doing my due diligence to try and find some of these answers, especially as it relates to training and safety measures for gun owners, or being a prerequisite for applying for a gun permit. And what I'm really finding out is that the state just does not require it, the state does not require any training to obtain firearms. I've asked the Monroe County's clerk's office if any information is at least given to people who apply for gun permits. I haven't got an answer back, but I just think that there are many firearm safety courses available, and if it's not a requirement by law, at least that information should be in the packet that goes along with applying for the gun permit. I've recently started the process to apply, and I know that there wasn't any of that information that was provided to me. So that's one thing I'm going to be talking to them about implementing, because that's just really just a sheet with safety courses on it. But also, I think that state officials have honestly just been scared to take on the issue over the years. The Second Amendment says mint is well regulated, and I'm sure that the NRA and the gun lobbyists have really fought to make things this way. I agree that taking safety courses is a great recourse when applying for gun laws. And as it pertains to legislation that can be done at the county level, let me just remind everyone that all illegal guns start out as being legal. And some research concludes that about 5% of all gun dealers are repeatedly linked as the supply source for 90% of the guns that are on the street, that are recovered on the street. And so I'm asking questions like, where are the crime guns coming from in Rochester specifically? What dealers are they linked to, or what gun owners are these guns linked to? And I think it's very important for us to be told that, so we can act to eradicate gun violence. I believe that also that there are intentional gaps in the federal law that make federal standards very weak as it pertains to gun laws, and don't address like the serious issue of gun violence in the Black and brown community. And it's also hard to regulate laws that don't exist. And you can't enforce gun laws that aren't there. So this isn't just something that needs to be done at the county level. There is work to be done at the federal level, at the state level, and at the county level and city level, and so on. But it is my belief that states and counties can take action by supplementing some federal framework. I'm currently working with a few folks from the Brady campaign, and also people from the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition's Advocacy Committee to draft legislation to address some of that. But more specifically, when illegal guns are confiscated by the police and gun owners haven't reported them stolen, they should share in the culpability of that crime. And so that may look like a fine, that may look like revocation of their gun permits, and it could be punishable up to some jail time. So we're looking right now at the specific language or how to actually word some legislation to see if we can get it passed to I don't know, eradicate gun violence in the city.
Thank you, Legislator Lamar. And that leads me to the chiefs. We on these guns, and Legislator Lamar, you brought up a good point, because I know, I'm born and raised in the city as many of you are as well. And, we always hear, these guns are coming out of these stores. They're coming out of here. They're coming out of there. We always hear this conversation, Chief, of like, why can't we figure out where these guns from? And Legislator Lamar, you bring up a good point that a large percentage of the guns at some point were legal. And then at some point they made their way on the street. We know that our legislator Ernest Flagler put forth a gun safety bill in your home, because many of these guns are stolen guns that are stolen out of people's homes as well too, that end up and find their way on the street. But how do we, how are these guns entering our community, Chief? Where are they coming from? And how can we be more proactive on them not getting in the wrong hands?
So I think it's a very complex issue, and you both bring up some great points that I think we in law enforcement try to wrap our hands around as well. As I said, it's a very complex issue. Illegal crime guns are typically only traced back to their original point of sale, which means that, if a gun is purchased in Florida, when you run that gun, we can be able to tell that it was purchased and sold at store ABC in Florida. But I can't tell you when we arrest someone with possession of a weapon or if a gun is used in a crime, I can't tell you if it's been in our community for 13 years, 13 days, or 13 minutes. And, you know, legislator Lamar brings up a great point. Many of our guns are legal at one point in time. There are many guns that are stolen through burglaries, larcenies, car larcenies, or taken from homes or gun shops. I think not too long ago, probably less than a year ago, we had an incident out, and I think it was Parma, where we had almost 100 guns stolen. I think that individual was just sentenced to 15 years in prison, the person who did that crime. So it's very tough. Do you have straw purchases? You know, someone who can walk into a gun store, purchase a gun legally, and then take it to the parking lot and make a sale from someone, and then that gun is no longer, you know, legal at that point. And those guns travel. Those guns travel from state to state. And I think what you also find is that many states have relaxed gun laws, not like New York State. You know, there's a debate about the SAFE Act, whether that works or not. You know, as many would say, the SAFE Act probably only puts more restrictions on legal gun owners, as we often find that individuals who do carry guns or who are involved in criminal activity, who use illegal guns, those individuals don't care about the SAFE Act. So, you know, that's a debate for the politicians, and I try to stay out of that. But a lot of gun thefts go unreported as well. And so, like you said, the more that we can come up with laws and ordinances to try to, you know, ensure that those individuals who are gun owners take the proper courses of action. And part of that is what legislator Lamar talked about with regard to having possibly a course for gun owners. You know, I've always heard and gotten into the debate of, you know, before we give someone a license to drive a car, we make sure they go through several things in order before they can operate that motor vehicle on a highway, because you are there's a liability there, right? There's a liability to owning a gun as well. And oftentimes what we find is individuals who go to different places, establishments in the city or outside the city, no matter where you are in this country, they leave a gun inside the glove compartment because they may not be able to take it into the fitness center, or where they work out. So it's a very complex issue. We work with our partners from the ATF, and many of the guns that we know sometimes come from Georgia, come from Maine, but it's sometimes not a steady stream. It's not a steady stream back and forth, as we say, as many might think. And then there's a corner store aspect of it as well. Sometimes when we do inspections, we do find illegal guns inside the corner stores. Most of them is probably for self-protection, but I don't think it's as prevalent as one might assume. So there is no one answer to this. It's a very complex issue, and the guns travel and go to our communities. Like I said, I can't tell you if a gun is here for 13 minutes, 13 days, or 13 years after we take possession of it.
All right, thank you, Chief. We got Councilmember Lachey is with us as well. So I just wanted to give her an opportunity to weigh in too, from her perspective, because she wears a lot of different hats, but one that she's worn for many years is in the EMS field. So I just wanted to kind of get your perspective from the EMS field on public safety around this topic of violence and gun violence in our community.
Thank you, Vice President Lightfoot. I could tell you that gun violence hit me when I first became a paramedic, because I worked the overnights, and I'll never forget the call because I can close my eyes and remember it. We responded to a young man who probably should have been at home because he was only 17. He was shot in the head, and I had to be the responding paramedic. And I remember having to work on this young man, and I saw the cornrow braids, and it bothered me because you can see the graphic details of what happened to him. But I had to take him to the hospital, despite the fact that it was obvious this was a fatal wound. At that particular time, the protocols did not allow us to leave those patients so they can work the crime scene and, you know, be evidence for the police. So we took them to the hospital. Nowadays it's different. It's very different. EMS protocols allow, so if there is a fatal wound, we leave the victim so the police can begin their investigative work, which is much better nowadays. But I could tell you the trauma hits not only the police, the community, it hits those of us who take care of them prior to getting to the hospital or prior to even going to the process of funeral. And it lives with us. Not to mention, I had a cousin that was murdered 2008. I'm a paramedic at the time, working the streets. My cousin was murdered. And it bothers me to this day because he was young, just like many of them that we lose. Antoine T. McFadden. And the trauma that my family had to face, like many of us, did not understand the change in the protocols where those of us as paramedics will leave a patient behind and not transport because of fatal wounds. So the trauma lives with me. On county ledge, when I became a county legislator, I vowed to fight against gun violence. There's one piece of thing that a trauma surgeon at General and I worked at that we couldn't get pushed through because there was so much pushback about gun violence items on the county ledge already, because they were pushing back with Ernest Flagler's bill that he pushed out. There was so much pushback, but I have an idea of a way that we can kind of push through another type of bill. And the trauma surgeon, Mark Gestring Strong, said, there's one way, there's a loophole in the system that when a person dies, when they pass away and they own guns, multiple guns, legally, there's no formal process to transfer those guns. That's the big loophole right there. My grandfather died and his guns was handed just to whoever in our family, but there was no formal process that was forcing people to do the right thing. There's a process that we're supposed to do, but there's no law that forces them to transfer those guns properly. It's very loose. So Dr. Gestring suggested I come up with a bill. I have the wording for the bill and the legislation items for that bill that we never got a chance to pass. I'd like to share that and give that as a gift to ROC Against Gun Violence so we can kind of push that kind of legislation through by way to the city and through the county. So that's just one piece of item that I like to present, and I just hope that you guys know I'm dedicated and I'm very proud of all the work that you all have done, and I'm here to help.
Well, we thank you, of course. I think I saw your hand up earlier, Sabrina. Did you have another comment that you wanted to make? Or if not, I'll come back later. So, okay, we'll come back later. So I'm gonna throw this out there because we have questions, Chief, about in the chat, the mobile trauma unit. So we've answered it in the chat, but we didn't answer it. And I know I made the statement about it, and many people may be wondering about that particular process of what we're doing around that work. So what the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition did is we're taking some best practices from downstate New York in the Bronx. They have mobile trauma units that respond to homicides down there in New York City. And so we decided is we wanted to have a mobile trauma unit here as well too. Now, granted, this work started 2 years ago. And we actually presented the proposal to the mayor, the idea last year, last January. And then myself and other members on the panel have been working extensively with the chief and others to come up with a comprehensive homicide response plan. And the ideal is we have 30 or 40 average homicides a year. And that by itself, it just blows my mind that we can actually average how many people are getting killed in our city. And one life to me is too many. So, you know, my thing is coming in as public safety, and I have also a background in public safety and 20 years on the Rochester Fire Department. And I've responded to numerous shootings, numerous stabbings, numerous homicides over my 20-year span on the fire department. And I too can share, that's why I said this, it not only affects the person who does the shooting, the person who got shot, but also the people who respond, and of course the families. But the people who respond are also affected too. I have images in my head of 16 Remington Street. I know, Chief, you may remember Santiago, they called him the Red Devil, at 16 Remington Street, that killed 3 people in that house. And one of them was a 2-year-old young boy. And I responded to that. I was first on scene and did EMS for everyone that was shot and stabbed in that house. And I'll never forget those images to the day that I probably die. I will never forget those images. But with this, in holding all of this trauma, we realize that we always talk about trauma. And trauma should be dealt with on many forms, not just the providers, not just the people who've been affected, but the surrounding community as well too have been affected and traumatized. And PSTD is real, and it's real within our community. But we talk about it, but what do we actually do about it? What services do we actually provide? So someone asked the question, Ms. Cecilia, she wants to know, is the trauma unit gonna be staffed with clinicians? Yes, that's the idea. Are we gonna have pre and post quantitative data that we get from the people that we are servicing? Yes, that's part of the homicide response plan. As a matter of fact, Legislator Sabrina Lamar made sure that that was put in the plan, that we assess these individuals before and after, and continually to assess them along the way and throughout the year. One of the challenges that we have is people coming forward with information. So I want to ask the panelists, and anyone can jump in on this question. What things can we do to get people to be more cooperative and come forward? Because this is Rochester. Let's just, most of us know we're 2 to 3 degrees away from separation. Like, we all know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. We are a mid-sized city, but we're not Chicago. We're not New York City. We're not LA, and so why is it so difficult for people to come forward? And what things can we do, panel, to address that? I seen your hand, Legislator Lamar.
That's a very good question. And we have somewhat of a system that Pathways to Peace and Rise Up Rochester serve and SOY use. And it goes a little something like this. When a victim arrives at the hospital, Pathways to Peace goes to the hospital and does a risk assessment and gather a lot of information from the victim. They then share that information with me. And I work with the community partners to provide a safety plan for the victim. So when he exits the hospital, he won't return right back to that violent situation. And then in particular, we work with SOY, which is Saving Our Youth. And the reason that these 3 pieces are very important is because the people on their teams are considered to be credible messengers, and they have ties to the streets. And so people who don't normally talk to the police will talk to them. And SOY, a big part of what they do is mediation. So if they can find, and they're not scared. So if they can find out who the perpetrators are, what clique they're from, what gang they're from, what areas they're from, they actually will go over there to that neighborhood and pull up on whoever the perpetrator is or the perpetrator's crew, and have a conversation with them and see what needs to be done so we can resolve this matter. We had a young lady who, her house, 5 people got shot at her house, and she was in a gang, but she didn't really want to be there anymore. And we took those same steps. Someone from SOY was actually able to have a conversation with the gang leader, and she was able to get out of the gang without any consequences. So I think it's important to have a collaborative effort going on, so you can have somebody working on dispute mediations and assessments and safety plans. So you need a group of people to come together and do that in tangent.
Thank you. Ray?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I could say after 22 years of service on the streets and really pounding the pavement, I would say being visible, really building trusting relationships with your community, and not being, you know how they say your word is your bond, right? It's like, if you say you're going to do something, really you got to come through and do it. our young people have been let down so many times that they really don't want to, it takes a lot for them to gain your trust at first. So they really need that love and that bonding and that relationship to be real. And that's what I think that the team strives themselves on, is 22 years of building relationships. When someone's shot, stabbed, or assaulted, 9 times out of 10, we know somebody from that family, right? And that's what 22 years has been able to do for us. And that is to make us feel comfortable enough to have a real conversation, real communication, real credible messaging that the teams have been able to do through generations. I mean, we're in our 4th generation of family members where we have grandfather was a gangbanger and we worked with him, dad, child, and now the great grandson. So it's almost like we're bound to know somebody in that family. So I want to just continue on with that should set the tone. Whatever we do, as I'm doing forward now, is cradle to career. Moving forward is really holding on to that infancy stage of a young person's life all the way to see them through. And that is being visible, being present, being accountable, and again, not being fake. If you're gonna say you're gonna do something, you gotta do it. You can't just be like, I'm a big brother. Like, there's a lot of young fathers right now that can't be fathers because they're being their friend to their children. We need fathers to be fathers, right? So we need to keep that real. So that's all I just wanted to add. And I want to thank my current team who's out there doing this stuff day in and day out, and the soy workers that are day in and day out there pounding that pavement with Rise Up Rochester, Rock the Peace, prayer circles, prayer vigils, and clergy on patrol. Everybody that's doing this work. Again, it's our calling. It's not a job. We don't do this because this is what our passion is. So that's all I just wanted to add to Sabrina's comments.
I'm going to read a couple of the questions in here. If people want to jump in, we have a few minutes before we're going to go to closing statements and wrap up. But I'm just going to read these into the record because people have asked these. It's just 2. And then if you want to address, anybody wants to address them real briefly, we can. But one says, Chief, how come there is not a lot of officers that look like our people in the city? Another one says, it feels like hopelessness and needed to feel a measure of worth gets twisted into violence when there's no outlet for creative emotions. Purpose as a tool or hope, can youth be utilized as mentors for kids in their neighborhoods, or can the elders of the community be leveraged? Can youth be channeled to record and creatively tell their stories to the elders? Writings, TikTok, dance, music, grandparent benches, see TED Talk with Dixon, where trained listeners are available for those who are looking for connections and an ear. So I just wanted to read both of those into the record. If anyone wants to address any one of those very, very briefly before we get ready to head into our closing statements and wrap up our conversation for this evening.
I think for the first part of the question with regards to police officers looking at the community, that's one of my goals. Is one of the things that we always try to do is we want a community that the department that reflects the community that we serve. We try to look for avenues and ways for recruitment to try to do that. As you know, it's tough to recruit right now in this environment, and it has been tough for quite some time. One, the economy was doing great before COVID occurred. And then the other thing is that now, social media and news, we see what's going on with regard to policing. And it's hard to attract individuals to this profession. But as I always say, that doesn't mean we give up. We have to go out there and work a little harder to show why this still is a noble profession for those that get into this profession that want to do the right thing for the communities that we serve. And this is what we're talking about, doing the right thing, trying to get justice for individuals who are victims of violence. The other part of that, I think, is that, establishing those relationships. We must continue to establish those relationships, and we must do the work. And I think in the last year and a half, we have done the work. We are out in the community. And that's why I say I don't think we have a lot of the issues. We're not perfect as a department, but we don't have a lot of the issues that other departments have across the city. Because, one of the things that I'm doing, I think I'm one of the most accessible chiefs that are out there. People call my phone, people inbox me, people call me all the time. I just talked to John Rouse last night in Messenger, like 11 o'clock at night. We were talking about, doing something to bridge the gap. So I have so many people in this community because who want to help. They like, I don't want to sit on the sidelines. I want to help you. I've been working with people who I went to high school with. I've been working with a number of things. We're getting ready to do a town hall on July 1st. So a part of this is about being transparent. We're ready to do a town hall to try to bridge the gap. We've been working with a bunch of pastors in the community, other law enforcement chiefs around this county. So we've heard the message about change, and we're ready to do the work. And there are a lot of people in this community who call me all the time when things happen in this community. So my ear is to the ground, and that lets me know that there are people in this community who are willing to help out. I mean, last year I remember Wanda Ridgway called me, Serena called me when we had that one stretch in that week of first week, I think it was June or July, we had like 6 homicides in that 1 week, and people were calling my phone off the hook wanting to get involved. So there are people in Rochester who just don't sit on the sidelines, and I think more people need to know that. And once people know that we are making progress with the work that we're doing, that's when people want to get involved.
All right.
Yeah, I want to add a part
Go ahead, Rick.
Part two to that question with getting young mentors and youth involved in some of the education along with the elders that's part of my Brother's Keeper initiative, right? And it's using all those milestones that Obama set forth, and that is to make young people accountable and also make them educators. Have young people teach other young people about implicit bias, about cultural identity, about diversity and equity. These are some of the things that we're talking about right now as grown-ups due to the temperature of what the nation is going through right now. But having our youth have these dialogues, becoming certified mentors and teaching them to be peer educators and teach their younger generation as they move forward, right? So a college student teaching a high school senior teaching a junior high school student, a junior high school student teaching an elementary school student. And that's where you have those layers and layers of peers training each other. And you're actually creating mentors by doing this. You're creating mentors, future mentors for our community. So I want to say thank you to, there's some Cecilia who's asking the question about recruitment and engagement of young people in middle school. And we remember the DARE program in 5th grade that most of us took advantage of. And we got to know who Officer Friendly was and have that educational piece with law enforcement, which we don't have at this point in time. It might be there, but it might be very minuscule. So again, that's part of what My Brother's Keeper is all about. And that is bringing our young men of color up from cradle to career.
All right. Well, panelists, we could talk about this stuff for days, right? I mean, we're all passionate about it. This is not the end of the conversation. We're having it. We're doing the work on a daily basis. And we're constantly advocating, eradicating, and trying to educate our community around this topic. And we meet monthly, the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition. We're going to keep these conversations going. We are committed to this work. We will not stop this work. This is what we do. This is what we are passionate about. And I want to offer each one of our panelists 1 minute to kind of wrap up your feelings around this, however you're feeling right now, what you would like to see or whatnot. And then after that, I'll go over just how to engage with us. If any individuals want to, even the individuals that are in the chat, if you want to help us be a part of crafting the mobile trauma unit, what does that look like, or adding additional input to that. This is, your community. This is our community. So we need your help. That's the one of the reasons why we're out here having these conversations very publicly, because we want the community to help us out and to engage with us around solutions around this. So I'll start with Wanda, and we'll go around and we'll have our last comments, and then I'll wrap up with how people can engage and when our next meeting will be, and then we'll let folks go for the evening. So on you, Wanda.
Hi, good evening. I just want to thank you, Councilman Lightfoot, for this opportunity to be on this panel. What I would like to see from our community is, like they said, if you see something, just say something. If you are afraid and you just need someone to stand with you, you can always call me. I post my number, Rise Up Rochester number, which is 454-3060. or you can hit me at riseuprochester@yahoo.com. You just have to be that, you have to get out there. If you see something brewing, just say something. I tell people it's better to say something now than to have to bury a loved one later if, see people with guns, so that's my mission. That's what I would like to say this evening.
Thank you, Wanda. Serena.
Hello, I'm sorry. Just wanted to thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition, and also this panel. Is very interesting. Just want anyone that's out there to know that as a mom, any parent that need to reach out to someone, I'm always available. It doesn't matter, morning, noon, or night. You will call me anytime. Even if you just need to scream or just need someone to sit on the phone while you cry, I'm that person. Also, if you have young folks that lost their parent or sibling to violence, either by death or prison, just reach out. Just reach out to ROC the Peace. And I just want to see, if we can't change everyone, but we want to change the lives and mindset of as many people as we possibly can. You'll see ROC the Peace and the other organizations out here, and we'll be out every Monday. This Monday we'll be across from the Boys and Girls Club, and anyone is available to come out if you need to talk, you need to pray, or whatever. And our schedule will be on the ROC the Peace Facebook page. But like I say, our doors, our phone is available at all times.
Thank you, Serena. Leslie Lamar, Vice Chair.
Thank you. I too want to echo some of my colleagues by saying thank you to you, Councilman Lightfoot and Ray, for putting this together, and also thank the panelists for being a part of this and staying committed to this process. I just want to echo one of my sisters, Tony Nelson, who lost her husband and her son to gun violence. And she reminded me last night that although she loves us, she wishes that she never met us, because a lot of us who do this work, do it because we've been affected by gun violence, and we know each other because of what happened to our loved ones. I also want to echo what Wanda said. If you see something, say something. And this isn't a time to point the fingers at who's doing what and who's not doing enough. This community needs all hands on deck. When we say that Black Lives Matter, we also have to mention that the majority of the violence that's happening in our community is happening to Black men, and they matter. And so if it calls for us having the same type of energy and the same type of rallying that we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks, we have to be that committed to this as well. Or our fights and everything that we're working for will be in vain, because our kids won't be around to reap the benefits from it. So I beg the community to get involved and to come out and to ask questions. And if you see something, say something. If you see one of us and you want to get involved, just say it. We welcome you. Thank you.
Well said, Leslie Lamar. Ray?
I'm taking it all in, and I am overwhelmed about today's discussion. I think that Gun Violence Awareness Month is every month, not just June. And I think that maybe we should adopt that here in our city and just make every month Gun Violence Awareness Month, and really put forth the effort every month, month in and month out, to continue to hold these forums, this town hall, continue to work together to brainstorm new ideas. I just saw a chat on the side of Rudy Valentino, hoping to engage with us, teaching young people how to channel their energy when they're dealing with trauma, using the stage as their platform. So I think that's a shout out to you, my brother, Rudy Valentino. But overall, I'm feeling that, yes, this is beneficial. We're getting a lot of good comments out there, ovations and hand claps, but there's still tons of work to be done. And I think we have the right train moving forward with this panel right here and everybody that's engaged doing the work, that we can continue to do this, not just during the month of June, during Gun Violence Awareness Month. I'm really a big believer. But I also want to take this time to say thank you to all the attendees who have been patient with us and been watching and being silent, but also observing and giving us their feedback. We greatly appreciate you all. And everything that we said today has been recorded. It will be on YouTube, and all the sites that we talked about will be also written up and will be sent out to each and every one of you. So we thank you for that. And that's all I have. Vice President Lightfoot, thank you for allowing me to steer the ship this evening. And I'm really motivated at this point in time.
Thank you, Ray. Chief.
Well, thank you for you, Vice President, for holding this forum. I think it's very important. I think I looked and saw the peak number was about 55 people, and it stayed throughout that for almost the whole 90 minutes. So let you know that what we're talking about is a very important topic to many in this community. When we talk about, every time we have a conversation like this, I'm always excited when we leave this forum, because there's so much work to be done. And I'm always pleased with regard to the number of people who are willing to do the work. And just some of the comments that I've seen from Valentino and McIntosh, I think is incredible. We have 165 on average about shootings victims in Rochester each year, with about 28 to 30 homicides and 34 homicides. And I tell you what, the only thing that separates a non-fatal shooting to becoming a fatal shooting is a matter of inches in the trauma care that is done at the hospital. So I think it's very important that we continue to talk about trauma informed care to those individuals who are directly involved, but not just those individuals who are directly involved, but indirectly involved, those individuals who live in a neighborhood. And I always say that when the police tape comes down and police cars go away, there are people who live in those neighborhoods who are affected by the gun violence or the bullets that went through their windows, things of that nature. So I think what we're doing right now is galvanizing this community to really come forward and talk about some of the solutions to this gun violence problem that we're trying to eradicate. And I think the solutions have to be flexible and they have to be fluid.
Thank you, Chief. And thank each and every one of our panelists, Ray Melise, Serena Cotton, Wanda Ridgway, Legislator Sabrina Lamar. We had Councilwoman Lachey Harris with us. And we really appreciate all of our people that are participants and attendees who have logged on to listen to us and share with us on this evening. We also believe with you, Ray, that Gun Violence Month is every month. That's why we meet every month, sometimes twice a month, because we realize that as long as the violence is happening, we need to have positivity of eradicating the violence within our community. And that's ongoing, nonstop, day after day after day. There's no convenient time for violence. The chief's getting calls at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Some of us are all receiving these calls at wee hours of the morning and night, holidays, weekends. The work does not stop. So I commend each and every one of you for the work that you're doing, the commitment, all of the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition members and our partners, as well as our mayor, for her tenacity to allow us to have this space, to have these conversations. The community, we need you. We need the community to help us to continue to work on solutions to this problem. I wish we had 5,000 people on this call. I wish we had the same energy that Legislator Lamar was talking about around some of the other incidents that we've seen in our community. But I wish we had that same energy around these 17 names and lives and families that are hurting right now and that we've lost in this city. And I want to challenge our city to begin to look at having that same energy. around us eradicating this violence within our community. See something, say something. You want to get involved in the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition, you can simply just go to www.cityofrochester.gov/think about it, or you can call 585-428-6554. That's my direct line. Or you can email andre.gully@cityofrochester.gov, which is my legislative aide. We look forward to partnering with more partners. We want more partners at the table. We want more individuals from our community at the table. We think Rise Up Rochester, Pathways of Peace, Rock the Peace, Serve, Save Our Youth. We thank all of those individual partners that we've been, the Rochester Police Department and others that we've been partnering with for the last 2.5 years. We are making progress. We are making progress, ladies and gentlemen, but it's a lot more work that we have to do. And we need more people, more feet on the street. We need more prayers from our clergy members, and we need more involvement from our clergy members. We need more agencies and CBOs to assist us and help us with the knowledge that you may have that can help us with this issue and this problem. And I implore those who are hurting right now, those who have lost loved ones right now, to reach out to some of these individuals on this panel to begin to your process and your journey towards healing, because we are one city and it's going to take all of us to get to where we need to be as a city, which is better quality of life for everyone in our city. So it is my honor and my privilege and my pleasure to be able to be a part of this and to be a chairman of the ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition. But I just want to encourage individuals. Our next meeting, if you want to get engaged again, of course, all of our information is on that website that I shared with you before. But on July 22nd, we'll be having another ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition meeting. We'll be probably reporting. I know somebody said, I hope that there's a report to the community, but we do that every month at our meetings. We give a report to the community of where we are and what we're doing and what we want to do. And by then we should have more information on our homicide response plan, as well as our trauma unit. So we were reporting that on July 22nd. It's going to be at 6 o'clock. You can go to www.cityofrochester.gov/think about it. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on all of the social medias out there. Look for us, ROC Against Gun Violence Coalition. We look forward to partnering with you. We know we had, what is it, Rudolph or Randolph, Ray? We know we had some people offer their services. And that's how this is gonna get done. I started the Cut the Violence program with just an idea in my barbershop of trying to help somebody other than myself to provide my gift to the community. Every one of us has a gift, and we're asking you, share that gift with this community to make our community a better place. We love you, God bless you, and good night.
Good night, family.
Good night.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you all.
Blessings. Thank you, Patrick Flanagan. Thank you,
Good night, BJ, Scanlon. Good night, Teresa.
everybody that helped us out, William.
All attendees,
Everybody,
thank you.
communications, thank you. Be safe.
Good night.